Can you hear me? Am I back? Am I here? Hello? Yeah, I'm back? Yeah. Yes. Yay. Okay, good. I'm glad. Sorry about that. Looks like my bitrate, like, dropped like crazy. Damn. Damn. Is it? Okay, am I still here? Am I still here? Once you restart, you think you crash later because on your side it finally picks it up? Wait, what? Sorry, I'm not understanding. Oh my god, dude. I hate that it does that shit. Alright, let me go back on the thing a little bit.
And he continued to
Oh my god.
run. We were getting closer to my house. The man suddenly gave the car some gas and sped ahead of us,
Bro.
then pulled over next to the curb.
Yeah, I'm sorry
where
about
we
that,
were
guys.
about
That's
to
so
pass.
annoying.
Connor and I stopped, and I said, "Cross the street." We did, to avoid the man possibly jumping out of his car to grab us. This ordeal made us run even faster to my house. My house was now in sight, and the red car was still behind us. We made it to my front porch, and I rang the bell at least 10 times until my mom answered the door. We pointed to the red car, but it was already all the way down the street. We told her about the man who was following us from the arcade, and she was mad that we led him right back to the house instead of ringing one of the neighbors' doorbells. And she was right to say that, because the next day when I was leaving to walk to school, I
Don't
saw
tell
that
me.
red car parked a few houses down on the opposite side of the street
No,
right away.
bro. No.
I went inside to tell my parents, and while my mom called the police, my dad stepped outside and started angrily walking over to the car. As my dad was halfway towards the car, it turned on and sped down the street to never be seen by us again. I had to speak to the police a little bit to describe the man and what he did at the arcade during the walk home and afterwards. Sadly, my dad did not catch the license plate, but they did have the information
Good
on
Lord,
what
that's
kind
so
of car
creepy.
it was. Still, I don't think they ever found that guy. He was clearly sick in the head. We were not allowed back at that arcade by our parents.
Man.
The arcade owner was alerted of that man.
Damn. I was gonna say. Why? Just wait till the police get there. Oh my god. Oh my god. Stop. Stop it. Stop it. Sorry. Sorry. Knock it off. Oi. Continues to blast music. No! I kept clicking pause, and then when I would pause it, it would unpause, and then I would, yeah. Do you know what I mean? Pizza delivery horror stories? Pizza delivery. Pizza delivery! It's me, a porn star.
At the age of 17, I was
You
working
order a
as a
fucking
pizza delivery
pizza?
boy for a local pizza place. I was doing it
The
for
donut
months
game,
by
hello,
this point.
welcome!
I had done countless deliveries already.
Pizza.
My first car was an old, cheap Toyota, so it was perfect for bopping around town with. It was a
Kai
Friday
Dad.
or Saturday night. I was working the closing shift, which was 12 a.m. It was open later on weekends.
We need
This
a Kai
was
Dad
towards the end
emo.
of the night, past 11 for sure. My boss, who I'll just call Mario, would always give me the details for the houses I'd be delivering to and their orders. We had an order for 1 pie to a woman named Karen, ironically. It was an unusually long drive away, about 15
Drive away.
minutes.
Oh,
Most
oh.
orders come locally around the area, like 5 minutes away on average.
Look at how
I
pretty.
expected a better tip for this reason. I brought the pizza to my car and off I went, listening to my usual playlist on the way. I
Nice.
pulled down the block of the address and pulled up in front of the house. It was a small-sized house, as were most of the houses in the area. It seemed to be a lower income area. The lights were on in one of the rooms on
There
the
we
first
go.
floor.
Bumpy
I was
hair in
approaching
there.
the door when suddenly a woman called
What
out
did I
from a
say?
window
What
from
did
the
I
house
do?
next door saying, "Excuse me, that pizza's for us. We gave the wrong address."
What?
So I walked next door to the front door and saw that the doorbell was broken. So I opened the storm door and then knocked really loud on the main door. There wasn't an answer for a good 30 seconds, so I knocked again. And I heard a woman's voice on the other side yell, "1 second," but they still took forever to open the door. Another minute passed before the door finally opened, and a woman in probably her mid-40s answered the door. She right away
Karen.
smiled at me and gave this flirtatious head-to-toe stare at me as
Oh,
if she
don't
were
like
checking
that.
me out.
Nope.
She said in a very loud voice, "Chels, come look how handsome the delivery boy is." Another woman about
what?
the same age came over to the door, and she did the same thing. Right away, I felt my cheeks getting red, as I was a bit shy around older women like that.
That,
The woman who
yeah.
opened the door,
As you
who
should
I'm
be. That's
assuming was
fucking
Karen,
weird.
asked me what time I get off work.
Bro.
That was when
Oh,
I started
what?
getting really nervous because I wasn't good at flirting with women at that age.
You don't
I
need
said,
to
"This
be,
is
bro.
probably my last delivery." And then one of the women asked me if I wanted to come in and have some wine with them. I knew my friends would all rip on me forever if I blew this opportunity, so I said, "Yeah, sure."
No, no,
They asked how
no.
old I was, and I said 21. And then they both laughed, and one of them said they don't care if I'm under 21. They told me to sit on the couch, so I did. And they both sat on either side of me.
Ew.
This whole encounter felt too good to be true to me. Nothing like this had ever happened to me before. I had a feeling these two women were already very drunk. From here, the women
That's
are both
so
being very
weird, dude.
flirty
Even
with
if
me,
I'm drunk as hell, I'm
commenting on
not
my
doing that
dimples,
shit.
saying how cute my shyness was, and all this stuff. I was drinking some wine, pretending like it didn't taste disgusting to me, because I didn't drink wine at that age at all. The woman
Yeah.
Chelsea started saying that they want to show me something in the basement. I laughed and said, "What is it?" They both laughed and said it's a secret, but that I'll like what it is. They wanted me to go down
Sex
first.
dungeon.
Honestly,
Bro.
I had my own fantasy about what was going to happen to the
It should
basement.
have been me.
Unfortunately,
The
it was
casting
nowhere
couch.
near
Oh
that.
my god.
I walked over to the doorway of the basement and looked down into the darkness below. I looked back at them and noticed they weren't laughing anymore. They had these blank faces. Only until they noticed me look back at them and they started to laugh and smile again. I said in a firm voice, "What's down there?" They said almost in unison, "It's a surprise." I started
That
to
is
walk
so
slowly down
fucking
into the
creepy.
basement, asking where the light switch is. One of them said, "Leave the lights off." Now this part I'm not 100% certain of, but I was looking down into the basement, and I thought I saw something move.
Oh.
Something as in a person's arm or hand.
Oh.
I turned around and saw the two women weirdly creeping towards the door, sneakily.
Nope.
I stepped out of the
no.
basement and shut the door.
I can
I
take
told them
them.
I need the money for the pizza
You
as
can
I
fix 'em?
nervously walked around them closer to the front door. This was when I spotted the towering, huge man standing in the doorway of an adjacent room, probably the kitchen.
What?
His 5 words have stayed with me all these years later. He said,
Oh
"Let's
my
just
God.
make this easy." I turned for the door and said the pizza's free. I ran to open it and slammed it behind me, only to hear it open seconds later. I got in my car,
Run!
locking the door
Run!
first thing, and that man was already outside my passenger side window looking in. He tried opening the door and then knocked on the glass. I put it in drive and got out of there not looking back.
Oh
I
my
got back to
god,
work
that's
and
so
told my boss
scary.
what
What the
happened
fuck,
and
dude?
why I came back empty-handed. He and the rest were in shock. I called the non-emergency number to report what happened, just in case if anything else should be reported at that
Reese's,
address
thank
again,
you.
the police would know something awful's going on in that house.
Oh my god, I just glitched
Whatever
there for a
trap I
second.
was about to walk into, thank God I didn't find out what it was.
Dude. I mean, no offense. Like, just don't go into somebody's house.
When I was 19 years old, I was still working at a nearby pizza place to help pay for food and gas and stuff. The job was always pretty easy. Just taking the order, boxing up the food when it's done, putting it in a bag,
Naive
and driving
teenage
it to the given
boys.
address. I'd done it a million times before, and nothing weird ever happened. It was very repetitive. Tips would usually be
Okay.
around $3 to $5, depending on the distance. Sometimes more
Okay.
generous people would give 10 or more, though. I remember this order was just a chicken parm hero and a regular slice. Smaller orders like this usually yielded lesser tips, but I didn't have a choice in which
Whoa,
deliveries I
Dios
did.
mío.
I was on my way to the address, and of course, the house was apparently on a dead-end block. This block had a more rural feel to it than the rest of the neighborhood. One of the houses had an RV sitting on the grass with a small patch of woods next to it. The other houses looked like little farmhouses. There was a lot more space on this particular street. And then I pulled up to the address. It was this small, weird-looking house with a huge property, though. It sat next to what appeared to be an abandoned house with overgrown grass and shrubs. It was probably around 6 p.m. and it was getting pretty dark out. So it was around the time people would start putting on their lights inside their houses. But all the lights in the house were off. And I noticed the front door seemed cracked open.
A cactus?
I began to walk over to the front door, and I heard a piano being played.
Sorry.
It sounded like it was a couple rooms away at least, muffled by some walls or a door or something. I knocked on the door and then rang the bell after a few minutes. Only the doorbell didn't work. The piano was still playing. I felt weird just walking in, so I walked around the property towards the back. The backyard was a literal mess. Things scattered all over the grass. I even saw a broken, rusty chain-link fence just sitting in the middle of the yard. I went to the back door and knocked really loud. I looked through the glass of the door and saw nothing except for what looked like a really messy storm room. Clearly, these people were not neat freaks, to say the least. When nobody answered the back door either, I went back around front and called one of the guys at the pizzeria to confirm the address with him. He took a second to check what he wrote down, and he confirmed that I was at the correct address. So I went back to the front door, pushed it open, and heard the creepy-sounding piano music still playing.
I'm good, dude. I'm good.
I yelled, "Pizza's here." The piano stopped. Someone yelled, "Over here." Then the piano resumed. They were playing this simple yet creepy repetitive song as if on loop. There were also no lights on in this house, so it was almost hard to see in there. I walked straight, getting closer to the sound of the music. The smell inside the house was very musty and off-putting. When I got halfway into, I guess what you'd call the foyer, I felt very uncomfortable. I wasn't going to go any further. I yelled, "I'm by the front door, sir." The music stopped, this time for good. And now there was just silence.
He's angry now.
I backed towards the door again so that I would be closer to the outside.
After 4 of these.
I was expecting to hear footsteps coming towards me. But no, it was just dead silent. I said, "Sir?" And a voice from another room said, "Yes, sorry, I have trouble walking.
Sir,
Can
is your
bring it in
penis
here,
out?
please?" I asked, "What room are you in, sir?" And he took a moment to answer back, "If you just walk through the living room, I'm in the dining room." There were no directions on the phone to do any of this, so this was very strange. I thought for a second about my next course of action.
Bye, Jelly.
I felt
Have a
bad
good
leaving in
night.
the case that this was some old, feeble
talk to
man
you
just living
later.
in a messy house.
Enjoy your food.
I started walking through the living room.
Thanks for hanging
There was
out.
an
I
opening
appreciate
that
it.
led to what I presumed to be the dining room. Me being my overly cautious and paranoid self was still suspicious.
Yum, yum,
Instead of walking straight into the dining room, I peeked around the wall just enough for one eye to see into the room.
yum.
I saw the piano, but there was no one sitting at it. I
Oh.
also didn't see anyone in the entire room.
Oh.
With that, I quietly but quickly walked back towards the front door, shut the door behind me, and drove back to the pizzeria.
Yeah, no.
I explained that I got a sketchy
safe
vibe
than
inside the
sorry.
house. My boss was completely understanding,
Oh,
especially
good.
when the alleged customer didn't call back asking why I left. That said everything.
Oh, yeah.
I didn't really understand the logic in trying to commit a robbery in your own house, and nor did my boss or
Maybe.
coworkers.
It wasn't their
So
house.
later that night after work, I looked up that address, and that house was foreclosed on months
Yup.
ago. It had
Yup.
been
Oh,
vacant.
that's so creepy.
When
Oh
I
my
told
god.
this to everyone, they had the same mouth-dropping reaction
Oh,
I did.
no, no, no.
I was truly mere steps away from probably getting robbed. That, or someone was trying to play a horrible prank on an unsuspecting pizza delivery guy.
What kind of a fucking prank is that, though? Like, what do you get out of it? That's so fucked up. That's so weird, dude.
It was my last week working at an Italian restaurant. It was a half pizzeria, half Italian restaurant, so my duties would switch from shift to shift. Sometimes I'd work the front register in the
I
pizzeria,
would've called the
sometimes
cops.
I'd be
Yeah,
a busboy in
literally.
the restaurant side, and sometimes I'd be doing deliveries. I liked doing deliveries the most because I'd make tip money.
Yeah.
So it was ironic that I left this job with a horrible, scarring experience doing
Oh,
a delivery.
no.
It was a late night delivery. Of course, this is when the shady things happen. We got an order for 3 specialty pizzas. It was a big order, probably like $70 worth of pizza.
Damn.
It was on the bad side of town. This was
Oh.
already a minor red flag. Good thing I drove a crappy old Civic and wouldn't draw any negative attention out in that area.
there you go.
Or so I thought. It was a 15-minute drive at least, and when I got to the house, I went up to ring the bell. The door opens within seconds, and this Latino man opens the door halfway, sees the pizzas, opens it fully, exposing the pistol in his hand.
Oh,
I'm not a gun person, but if I had to guess, I'd say it was a Colt 45. But I wasn't really paying attention to what kind of gun it was. My heart basically dropped out of my ass at the first sight of it and realizing the situation. Then 2 more Latino men came to the door and grabbed me while the first one still had me at gunpoint. They were yelling in Spanish at each other. Then the guy with the gun says in broken English, "Give me all of your stuff." I said okay, as I could barely breathe or speak due to my panic.
Yeah,
I grabbed my wallet, which was all I could really offer him. He then yelled phone. I gave him my phone as well. It was a Motorola Razr, the iPhone of the 2000s pretty much. One of them even forcibly grabbed my wrist and yanked off my watch.
Oh my god.
Thankfully it wasn't an expensive watch. After this, one of them grabbed my ID out of my wallet and read out my address. Then they threatened me, basically saying if I told anybody about this, they'd come to my address and kill my whole family.
Oh,
I said okay, I understand. Wanting to cry for help and for my life, but I couldn't. They then pushed me out of the house down the stoop, causing me to land on my hands and knees and start to bleed.
Oh my god.
They slammed the door shut, and all I had left on me now were my keys. I didn't return back to the pizzeria. I was too shaken and disturbed. I went home, noticeably quiet and shaky.
Right then and there.
My parents picked up on it. They also saw my scuffed up shorts and my bloody knees.
Oh.
They knew something was wrong, and they tried prying it out of me. I had to tell them the truth. I told them I was robbed at gunpoint on a delivery, and they had our address and threatened to come kill us if I reported them. My dad, who had connections with the police department, right away called the number of one of his close friends. And they immediately did a background check of the person living in that house. His name was Rodrigo. He had 4 prior felony convictions. And so, my dad, with the help of his police connections, ignoring the threat from the man with the gun, had a squad of police cars surround the house and enter the house with their guns drawn. I wasn't there, of course, but we heard a description of the scene through my dad's connections. 2 of the 3 men were still in the house and were arrested and charged. The man who had 4 convictions already got a life sentence.
Oh, wow.
One of the guys by his side had a prior conviction and was sentenced to 5 years. The 3rd guy wasn't in the house. I don't think they ever found him.
Oh
to
my
this
god.
day, he's still out there for all I know.
Oh, that's scary.
And on several occasions since then, I've woken up to sounds from outside when the windows are open,
Oh.
like footsteps on the side walkway to the backyard, or the gate swinging open and closed. It could just be my imagination or being paranoid,
that's so scary.
but I do still worry
Hopefully
for my
it's just
and my
that.
family's well-being. Enough time has passed now that I think that man fled the country, or at the very least knows better than to ever show his face in this town again. But still, it is
Don't show
something
your
that
face
hangs in
in
the
this
back of
town.
my mind.
This town ain't big enough for the 2 of us. Dude, that's scary. That is creepy. So creepy. I hate it. I hate it. I hate it. But I like knowing these. Yeah, I told you guys. I like knowing. So I can be prepared. So I can be prepared. Did I? Let's see. I feel like I've literally listened to all of them at this point. Because I listened to them like, Blizzard horror stories. I don't think I've seen this one. Blizzards. Snowstorm horror stories. Horror stories. I never had anything happen too sketchy happen when I was doing
Back
pizza
before
delivery.
my girlfriend Jenny
Thank
and I
goodness for
officially
that.
started dating, we would still hang out all the time. We both
Thank
snowboard,
goodness.
and her family has a little cabin-type house in Vermont, not far from Stowe Mountain Resort. This was around our maybe 10th time hanging out. She invited me to go up there for a weekend with her to go snowboarding for the first time together. It was like a 5-hour drive. As we neared her little house, we spent about half an hour on this very windy, secluded
Welcome
road
back,
on which
RP.
we'd pass occasional driveways that would lead up into properties blocked off by walls of trees. We were way up there in the mountains. The sight of other cars by this point was something to behold. It really felt like we were alone up there. A lot of the driveways didn't even have tire marks in the snow, meaning even a lot of the houses were void of
Snowboarding,
people.
huh?
Jenny told me that's because a lot of the houses here were owned by people out of state, just like her situation. I was going like 30 when she yelled at me to slow down, it's coming up. So I hit the brakes, and this little
It's
opening in
coming.
the trees that I otherwise would have missed came up. We drove this narrow trail in four-wheel drive, which led to this small house covered in snow. It looked incredibly cozy.
I have snowboarded
We
before.
parked, and first
I've
thing we
done skiing
did
and
was turn the heat
snowboarding.
on in the little house.
I'm not sure
We
which one I
unloaded our
prefer.
stuff inside, and since it was already getting dark that night, we just cooked some of the food we
Mr.
packed for
Draco,
dinner
thank
and
you so
watched
much
a
for the
movie.
follow.
Pursuit of Happiness, actually. So the house had just about everything.
Oh my
Heat,
god, you guys! We just hit the follower goal of 2,000. Holy shit! Wow! Let's go! Yeah! Let's go! So, this Friday? Do you want to have sleepover? This Friday? Oh shit. This Friday? Are you guys down for it this Friday? If not, we can do next Friday. RP, how dare you? How dare you? Don't you dare. I'm watching. I'm watching. I'm so excited. We can have a special stream. Thank you so much, you guys. I love you. I can't do it this Friday, sadly. What can we do? What can we do? Thank you, guys. I wouldn't be able to reach this milestone without you. I appreciate it so much. What the? Oh, sorry. I just like really confused for a second. I love you guys. Thank you so much. We're gonna have such a fun time. We'll figure it out. We'll figure it out. But I'm excited. Special stream coming up. Yay! I'm so excited. Thank you guys so much. I'm so excited. Okay.
electricity, except
okay.
running water. Her family had jugs and
okay.
jugs of water for important things like washing hands and plates and stuff. But there was no working toilet, so she told me we had to use the outhouse outside. I only had to go pee
I got
that
good
night,
more candy.
so I just went out to the front deck and peed into the snow. It was also snowing out that night. We fell asleep at some point during the second movie we watched, and we woke up pretty early to our phone alarms. We wanted the freshies on the mountain. We started getting ready to drive up to the ski resort. After breakfast, I had to go out to the outhouse, though. I ran out to the outhouse in my shoes, and my feet started to freeze. On my way to the outhouse, though, I saw footprints in the snow. They were kind of big, but I couldn't tell if they were boot marks or animal prints. I followed the trail, and
But
it
I
actually
want you to
wrapped
be
around the
there.
house and then went into the woods. I called Jenny outside. She
We'll
came to look and
we'll
said it was
talk about it. We'll
probably a
figure it
black
out.
bear since they're
We'll
everywhere
see.
up here. So I went, did my business, and we set off to the ski resort, where we had a good 8-hour run. Afterwards, we stopped at a diner to eat, and then went back to the house. By this point, it was pitch black outside and snowing again. We set up a fire and got the heat on full blast and started blasting some music. We started to drink, and eventually I had to break the seal and pee. But also,
Break the
if I was
seal,
throwing my
yeah.
boots on anyway, I figured I'd do all my business in the outhouse.
Oh.
I ran out into the snowstorm and to the outhouse once more. This time I slammed the door shut to prevent snow and cold air blowing in my face. I heard the blasting music from inside the house still, but then over that, I heard the crunching sound of footsteps in the snow, passing the outhouse.
Nope.
Jenny? I yelled. No answer. The footsteps just walked away. I
Mm.
brought my phone with me, so I just texted her, "Are you outside?" It didn't immediately deliver, though, because my cell reception sucked up there. A few minutes passed, and I was still in the outhouse. I was just about to finish when the blasting music suddenly stopped. It was just pure silence, minus the sound of snowflakes hitting the ground
Oh
outside.
god, that's so scary.
As soon as I stepped out of the outhouse, I realized it was pitch black out here now. The lights from the house were off. I figured maybe the power went out. I used my phone's
dude.
flashlight
Oh my
and
god.
noticed a fresh pair of footsteps in the snow
In the
leading
fucking
to the house.
snow?
I followed the footsteps to the front door. They seemed to stop, then continue around the house. I banged on the door and yelled Jenny's name. Suddenly the door opened and an arm pulled me inside the house. It was Jenny.
Oh, thank god.
She
Oh my
slammed
gosh.
the door shut and locked it. She whispered that there was a man who tried to open the door, which she locked as soon as I went to the outhouse because she was scared
fuck
being
that.
alone. When she saw the person at the door wasn't me, she cut the power and hid in a corner in the living room and watched in horror as a stranger walked past the living room window slowly, looking
Oh,
inside.
that's like one of my biggest fucking
I came to
fears.
the door only a couple minutes after this happened. Jenny told me about the secret cellar in the floor that her dad kept a couple rifles and
God.
shotgun in.
What?
Navigating in the dark, I found the handle to it and lifted it open. Now using
Ooh.
my flashlight, I climbed down the little ladder and grabbed one of the guns off the wall. We then waited on the couch in the dark, afraid to turn the lights back on, exposing ourselves to whoever was out there. The closest neighbors were not a short walk. Jenny said it wouldn't have been any of them, and odds are they weren't even in Vermont right now.
Yeah, I mean, like, who would do
Once
that to a
again, the
neighbor
only
unless they're,
sound was
like,
the sound
crazy?
of snowflakes hitting the ground outside, until the sickening sound of footsteps in the snow outside returned.
No,
I took the loaded gun and marched to the front door, opened it, and shot like 3 rounds into the air, screaming. The footstep sounds were gone. I'd imagine they ran off, and the sound of the shots echoing into the air masked the sound of the footsteps running away. We left the next morning
like
under
that
the
shit.
recommendation of her father, who said it's best to not be there at the moment. They don't really have anything they're worried about being stolen, so we just got the hell out of there the next day.
Literally just your fucking
At least we got our
lives,
full
dude.
day
That's
of
so
snowboarding
scary.
in. That horrific night was definitely an experience, to say the least.
Yeah, because, I mean, if somebody's trying to steal shit, they're probably not going to go to a place that's occupied. They're going to go to a place that
I
doesn't
live
look
in
like it's
England,
occupied.
and for others who live here, you may remember it snowed quite a lot in the winter of 2018. I used to love the snow, but after what happened, I'm no longer a fan of it.
Ooh.
My immediate family was going to visit extended family in Cornwall for the weekend. I didn't want to go. I don't get along with them very well, and would much rather have stayed at home,
Family
so I faked an
drama.
illness. I wasn't expecting it to work, but it did. They went without me and left me in charge of the house, which I was fine with.
Love it.
For the record, I was 16, so it's not like they were
Oh.
being irresponsible. Saturday was great. I went on my computer,
Oh,
watched
I
Netflix, and
didn't
played
see the
in the
titty
snow
grab.
with
Oh
my
my
dog
God.
for a bit. She loves the snow more than anything.
You stole it.
That evening, I was just finishing up a mission on Call of Duty World War II, when I started to get hungry. The house is full of food, but mostly food that takes a lot of effort to prepare. I decided to go to the fish and chip shop in the village. By now, it was getting dark outside, and the snow had stopped falling, but it had gotten really deep. I grabbed a tanner and crammed it into my pocket before pulling on a coat and heading outside. The route I take involves going down a tree-lined thicket that has a few street lamps for light before coming out near the main road where the chippy is. By the time I got there, it was dark out. I got some chips, battered sausage, and started to head back home. I was halfway down the snicket
Resident
clutching
Evil
my
Village?
meal when I heard it. In the trees just
was
to my
that?
right, a twig snapped. My head whipped around, but I couldn't see anything. My heart was racing, but I tried to convince myself it was just an animal.
Nah,
Until I
bro.
heard it again. 2 snaps in rapid succession.
Nah, bro, that's not just an animal,
Now
dude.
I was scared. I began to walk home fast. I forgot about what was coming up. The last section of the snicket, which was almost pitch black. The
Is that
bulb in the
possible?
street lamp had blown months ago, and the council couldn't be bothered to fix it. I sighed with frustration and worry, and carried on walking, before I heard it. The continuous sound of twigs breaking stopped for a moment, before being
Fuck,
replaced by
do I
crunching.
do this?
I stopped and turned around, and my heart stopped. I could see a black figure silhouetted by the lamp further down the snicket, a black figure who was running straight at me. I turned
Oh,
around
fuck
and full-on
that, dude.
sprinted through the snow. I burst out of the snicket and ran to my house, which was only about 10 meters away. I got my keys out as I was running, and I jammed them into the lock
Bro.
as soon as I was close enough. I threw myself into the house and slammed the door shut behind me, locking it. I
These
looked
will
out of the
not
door
go in
window
there.
and saw nothing. The streets were deserted. It wouldn't be that bad if it ended there, but it didn't. Paranoia kept me up late, and close to midnight, the dog started making a racket, barking and scratching at the back door.
It's
I
like
knew
it's
deep
too
down what she was
big.
barking at, but I didn't want to believe it. I went to the back door, but it was too dark to see anything. I steeled my nerves and flicked the light switch to once again see nothing. The back garden was empty. I dragged the dog away from the door and went back to
Damn it.
watching TV, but something was nagging me. I couldn't think what it was. The back garden was undisturbed apart from
I
my
think it's
footsteps
too
leading up to
big.
the back door from when I came home. That's when it hit me. I came in the front door. My veins turned to ice, and as I walked to the back door,
think it's too
I realized
big.
something was very wrong. I could feel cold air on my
Damn it.
face. I walked around to it and stopped dead. It was wide open. The build of my house gives 3 different options when you
wait.
enter the house. The living room, where I was,
I know.
kitchen, or stairs. As I slowly backed into the wall, I heard a light but clear thump upstairs.
Ooh.
With that, I grabbed the dog, grabbed my phone, and ran straight to the neighbors, and due to it being midnight, I rang the bell about 10 times before getting a response. They were furious about being woken, but When I told them what was going on, they let me straight in.
Okay,
The
good. I
police
was
took
like,
about
bro.
40 minutes to arrive because of the snow that was once again falling heavily. And when they did come, they did a thorough search of the house. They found nothing. The footsteps were all filled in by the snow, but the CCTV
Okay,
showed
I
a
had
figure
to
running
pull
straight
these
out
out
of
a
the
little
back
bit
door
more.
soon after I left and hopping the fence at the end. They disappeared into the woods behind my house.
Bro, fuck that.
It kills me to know he's still out there and that he knows where I live. I'm sleeping more steadily now, and we have a new lock on the door. And for a while, I was constantly worried
That's
for
so
me and my family's
creepy.
safety. I'm 27 years old. This happened when I was 26. My mom passed away a few years ago. My dad is blind. My dad sold a very successful energy company when I was young, though, so we have money and multiple properties which we rent out. Obviously, I have to do my part in helping out given the circumstances. I help manage most of the properties. My dad lives in his one-story condo about 10 minutes away from us. The condo is walking distance to the village, which has grocery stores and
That makes a
anything
lot
he
more
could need.
sense.
My sister Katie and I live in the house that
shit.
we all used to live in together as a family. Our dad gets by himself with basic things like shopping and taking care of himself, but we have to bring him to further away things like doctor visits and whatever he can't walk to. This happened during a winter storm.
Okay,
Katie was at her boyfriend's house half an hour away from home, so I was home alone. The snow was coming down heavily, and I thought to call my dad and check in on him. He has a landline phone because that's easier for him to use rather than a smartphone. He does have a smartphone, but he's stubborn about using it sometimes. When I called, it rang 4 times, then went to
Old
voicemail.
people.
So I called again, and the same thing happened.
Old
Normally he would
people.
rush to the phone to call back whenever we call. So I waited a few minutes before calling one more time when I saw he wasn't calling back. He once again went to voicemail. I left a message asking him to call me back. I called Katie asking if Dad said anything about going out in this weather, and when she said no he didn't, that's when I got worried. I didn't like the idea of him being out in a blizzard, so I drove over to his condo.
Fuck that.
The roads were so bad that there were hardly any cars on the road. My phone kept vibrating, giving a winter storm advisory warning. These were no conditions for my dad to be out walking around in.
Okay, there we go. I
As
finally
pulled
got
up to
it.
his
Holy
condo,
shit.
I did notice footsteps in the snow going both ways, indicating he must have gone out and just gotten home. I knocked on the front door and yelled, "Dad, it's me." And a few seconds later, the neighbor's wife, an elderly woman named Hannah, opened her door and said hello with a smile, telling me her husband just gave my dad a lift to the store a few minutes ago. We talked for a minute, then I thanked her as she closed her door. I figured I might as well let myself into my dad's condo to wait since I was already here. Naturally, before looking for my key, I tried twisting the doorknob, and to my disappointment, it opened the door. My dad didn't lock the door again.
Oh,
I told him so many times to stop doing this because one day someone would break in, even if we live in a nice area. I shut the door behind me, but then I noticed something peculiar. There were melted snow tracks on the wood floor,
Was it
leading
the
past the
neighbors?
living room to the little hallway, which leads to my dad's room. "Dad," I called.
Oh.
Did he get home just before I got here? But that wouldn't have explained Hannah's husband not having returned yet. Well, maybe it could have. Maybe he dropped my dad off and then ran his own errands. These were the thoughts I was having as I was slowly following the tracks. I called Dad one more time, this time louder. I didn't hear the shower running, so why wouldn't he be able to hear me? Something
Here it
wasn't
is.
right. He would have
You
answered.
did that.
I started calling my dad's cell number, and I heard it in the bedroom down the hall.
Oh my
He
god.
was home. I went down the hall into my dad's empty room. He wasn't there. I saw his phone vibrating on the nightstand. next
Dude,
to
that's
his bed.
such a fucking
I looked at the
nightmare. Oh
ground
my
and saw the
god.
melted snow tracks lead to his bathroom in his room. The door was closed. I went over to knock on it and said, "Dad," one final time. No response. I slowly opened the door, and the bathroom was empty. But there was something unusual I noticed right away, and that was the shower curtain. It was pulled shut. My dad always leaves the shower curtain pulled open. I know this for a fact. On top of this, the door being shut was also unusual. He leaves all doors and such open to make navigating easier for himself. I looked at the shower curtain for a moment, then closed the door, walked to the front of the condo, shut the door, and called 911.
Ooh.
I waited in the front of the condo,
Oh god, that's so
the
creepy.
only entrance and exit.
Where's Dad?
Police showed up surprisingly quickly given the conditions. We We went back inside of the condo together and right into my dad's room, where we saw a man sitting on the bed with his hands in the air, as if he knew we were coming and he waited there.
Oh my god.
My dad got home about 10 minutes after this.
Oh, thank
Time
God,
to hear
okay.
everything that happened. The man who broke in lived a few units down, according to his ID. That meant this
Bro.
man had been keeping an eye on my dad and his place for
Look
a while,
at-
with plans to break in and rob him. I think I learned where the saying "rob him blind" came from after this.
Sorry
My dad,
about
being
that
the kind
one.
soul he is, didn't even want to press
But look.
charges. But we persuaded him to hire a lawyer. The man was charged with third-degree burglary.
Bro, that one was
He's still in jail
crazy.
to this day.
That was crazy. That one was wild. Wow. Absolutely crazy. Look at that. Look at that shit. How cute is that? How cute that? Damn, dude, that was a fucking crazy. That was a crazy burp. Okay. This is a different channel. I figured we can just have it in the background.
Even though
I
this
thought,
happened back in December 2019,
Jesus. Okay. Okay, is that a little bit better? I've got one more book to do. Yeah! One more book. We're almost done. It's so fun. Bro, that burp was fucking crazy. Almost sent me all the way across my room, dude. That was crazy. I don't think I'm gonna... Oh. Put those right there for now. Nom, 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 nom. My god, it's so loud. Afraid you didn't break the wall with that one? Yeah, true.
still think about it on a daily basis because it was unlike anything I had ever experienced before. In early December, I had ventured out to do a bit of late night shopping.
Excuse me.
I'm a 31-year-old
fuck was that
stay-at-home mother
one?
of 2 young children, so once my husband gets home from work, I like to take some time to myself and go shopping. Take a drive or run errands, kid-free. It was around 8:30 p.m. when I arrived at the Target I frequent. I'm
Damn
by
it.
no means a paranoid or anxious individual, but I have attended several seminars in college on human trafficking, and I have done plenty of research on my own learning to identify red flags
Oh my god,
and
that's
what
what I do.
precautions
That's what I
to
do.
take when I'm out in public alone, especially at night.
Where's that
I
little
carry
piece-
several self-defense
going?
items on my person at all times, just in case.
Mm.
I parked directly in front of the store, next to a cart caddy, and I took a mental note of the vehicles parked nearby again, just
I
as
don't know where it
precautions.
went.
I was taught at an early age to always be observant of your surroundings, and being a control freak just naturally makes you that way.
Oh, pfft.
Nothing seemed out of the ordinary that night, and the parking lot was actually quite empty, most likely because it was a weekday. As I entered
Where'd
the
that
store,
little
I
piece
began
go?
browsing like usual, following the natural flow of the store departments, following the main aisle around. I had been browsing for only 10 to 15
Oh, I
minutes
found it.
when I noticed a young gentleman, mid-20s. He was tall, skinny,
I found
and dressed in a
it.
dirty gray two-piece sweatsuit and brown work boots. He looked over at me, so I smiled and said hello, but his
Excuse me.
facial expression was blank. He looked like he may have been high on something by the look in his eyes, but he didn't seem to care for my gesture, and he quickly moved on.
It's underneath me? Underneath my
At first
bussy?
glance, there was nothing in particular that alarmed me about him, except I took fact at the notice that he was wandering down the main aisle with no cart or
Is
basket,
that what you mean?
with his hands in his pockets, and didn't seem to be with anyone.
Mm.
I continued shopping with no second thoughts, and I made my way to the next apartment.
Okay, here we go.
Several minutes had passed, and that's when I noticed a second young gentleman, wearing the same type of clothing and similar pair of work boots. Again, no cart, no basket.
That's creepy.
He too glanced at me, then quickly darted his eyes away when he realized I was looking directly at him. I became a bit more alerted, but still remained composed and continued on browsing.
That's weird.
Another 15 minutes or so passed, and that's when a third older man caught my attention. And you guessed it, Same gray sweatsuit and work boots with no
What?
cart, no basket,
They're all wearing the
just his
same
hands in his
shit?
pockets. I assumed they were in some sort of work uniform, maybe construction workers. But why weren't they walking around together, and why didn't they have any items to purchase? At this
Yeah,
point, it was
that's
difficult
weird.
to focus on browsing. I had a bad feeling about these men, and it became clear that something
Yeah.
was a bit off.
I don't like that shit.
Over the next 20 minutes or so, I felt as if I was being monitored by the three of them,
Ugh,
as
I
if they
hate
were all
that.
communicating my whereabouts as I continued to make my way through the store. Because each department I entered, it didn't take long for me to notice one of the three men pass by whatever side aisle I happened to be in,
They think they're so fucking
making their
slick.
presence known to me.
Welcome back.
I stayed completely vigilant, while trying not to panic or allow my suspicions to overwhelm me.
Yeah.
Something about their presence felt very heavy and dark, so I decided to test their intentions. To prove I wasn't overthinking the situation, and my bad gut feeling was valid. I began picking random aisles and traveling back and forth between departments in a very
yeah, good idea.
unorganized and random fashion, to see if the men would continue to pass by me as frequently as they had been.
Silverline
Oh my
Phoenix,
God.
thank you so much for the gifted sub. Thank you. I appreciate that. Thank you so much. How are you today? I hope you're doing well. Thank you. I hope you had a great day today. Oh, and I went to Herbalink. Yeah. Hell yeah. Thank you so much.
With every aisle
Big
I popped
appreciate.
into, it was just a
Oh
few
my god,
minutes
thank you for
later
the
that one of
follow.
them would
Thank
make
you
an
so
appearance,
much.
staring me down as they passed by.
Thank you.
It felt as I was being surrounded
Dude,
like a
no,
wild
these guys
animal.
are creepy
hunted
as hell.
even. They were no longer trying to be conspicuous, which was the scariest part of it all.
Yeah, what the fuck?
And everything instinctual was screaming at me to get out of there. I gripped
But
my
that's what
car
they
so
want you to
tightly and
do,
figured
right?
if
I
they got
mean-
too close, I could use the car to push them away. Or at least create distance between us. By this point, I had been shopping for about an hour altogether, maybe a bit over that, and I was ready to purchase my items.
Mm.
But honestly, I felt too uncomfortable to continue browsing even if I wanted to.
Dude,
The men had been following me all that time, and I was becoming
you,
more annoyed if
Silverline.
anything.
I appreciate it.
The
You're
store
so
was
kind.
also pretty empty around this time, which is one of the main reasons I like shopping at night. But that made this particular situation even more unsettling.
Yeah, because then as soon as you go to the...
There were two
it's like
pretty
all,
teen
like,
girls that were wandering
dark
around by
outside.
themselves, which quickly caught my attention, because the men had bypassed them, making similar advances.
Oh, creepy.
But the girls
No.
were seemingly oblivious, so I quietly got their attention and asked them to go find their parents and stay with them, trying to not freak them out. That was just the mother in me that was in full protection mode.
What a good
I couldn't
person.
imagine having my young children with me on this night.
Yeah,
Thank
no.
God they were home safe and sound.
How did they...
As I made my way to the
Okay,
checkout,
I was like, please
I
don't
noticed one
end
of the
it.
men coming up from behind me, walking at a quicker pace this time, so I immediately stopped and turned to lock eyes with him as he approached me. I will never forget the darkness in his eyes.
Back up,
An
motherfucker.
eerie smirk formed on his face as he
Back
nudged my
off,
shoulder, continuing to
bitch.
stare me down, walking backwards to hold his sinister gaze as he exited out of the store. I had lost sight of the other two men, and I hated the uncertainty of it all.
Bro,
He made his message
alert
very
somebody
clear
in the
that
store,
moment.
dude. Like, just let someone know.
My stomach dropped and my entire body began to shake. It was a feeling I hadn't felt since I was a kid getting lost in the supermarket. A feeling of desperation. I quickly walked to the checkout, discreetly asked the cashier if I could speak to a manager.
Yeah, there we go.
I told him what transpired over the last hour, politely asking for a male employee to walk me out to
Yeah.
my car, and for them to alert their security team member.
Mm-hmm.
When I told the manager what happened, her face sunk as if she already known about these men.
Oh.
And once I described them, she confirmed she knew who I was talking about.
Oh my god.
She expressed to me that several of the female employees had found the men unsettling in the past, and reassured
Dude.
me that someone would escort me to my car.
They keep going to the same fucking
She
Target
made
to
a
do
report
it?
about the incident and said that she would alert the authorities. I was still shaking, but I felt relieved
something
that
out
she
of
believed me
SpongeBob.
and showed concern for the other young female workers in the store. She took my information, then a young male employee walked me out to my car. What I saw as I exited the store made me so sick to my stomach, solidifying all of my suspicions. There was a white windowless van that was parked in the lot directly behind
Oh,
my car,
fuck that.
about a 3 parking space distance between mine. One of the men was seated in the driver's seat, and the other two were leaning against the side of the van, facing my car, attempting to hide out of view. I mean, how cliche and obvious can you be?
Yeah,
The
literally.
license plate might as well read Lady Snatchers at that point.
Oh my god.
Whatever their intent, it didn't seem pure. I pointed them out to the male employee and said, "There they are," which then prompted the men to scurry into the van and speed out of the parking lot without hesitation.
Jeez, dude.
I truly don't know what would have happened if I would have walked out to my car alone, and I'm so freaking grateful I made it home safe and sound and lived to tell my story.
Thank
Over
goodness.
the center, parallel
I
to
keep
that
hearing
target,
about that. Not in the
and I'm
targets
almost
near
certain it
me,
was the same individuals.
but dude, it's scary. Look at it, it's so cute. So cute, so cute.
When I was 20 years old, about 6 years ago, I worked as a delivery girl for a popular pizzeria in my area. Initially, I worked the late morning to mid-afternoon shift.
Yeah,
And the
look
guy
at
who
these. They're
delivered
so
for the
cute.
night shift ended up getting fired due to him losing his license because of a DUI.
Oh,
I was placed on the night shift since my boss hired a
Kick 'em in
family
the
friend who could
balls.
only work my shift for whatever reason. I really didn't want this shift because you never know if people who order late at night actually want a pizza or if they have other intentions in mind. Unfortunately, my boss was an asshole and essentially told me if I wasn't willing to work the night shift, I was fired.
okay.
I wasn't exactly in a position where I could be out of work, so I reluctantly
Yeah,
worked
that
the
sucks.
shift. The first month of this
Damn.
shift went by without any issues until I had to deliver a pizza to a house that just barely made our delivery radius.
Oh.
I punched it in on my GPS,
that's
and the house
creepy.
was located in a pretty suburban part of the city. I arrive and it's about 11 p.m. The block was extremely quiet, but decently lit and mostly littered with modern townhouses. But the house I delivered to was a duplex.
Oi.
I ring the doorbell and I wait for about 30 seconds. No answer. I ring it again and wait another 30 seconds. Still no answer. So now I'm standing there getting pretty nervous that
Oi.
something might go
Oh,
down.
thank God. Oh my God.
But thankfully, a man opens the door.
Stay
He
strapped.
looked like he was in his late
Very.
40s, and he was pretty tall compared to
Hello
me.
there. How are you?
Maybe a little over 6 foot. But he was very skinny. I tell him that
I
his
do have a
pizza is here, and he just
Discord.
stands there staring at me. I asked him if he was okay, and he responded
Hi,
by
Corolla.
saying,
How are you?
"Yeah, I'm fine, sorry. I got off
Hello.
work not too long ago, and I'm zoning out a bit."
Hope we're doing well.
Fair enough, I suppose. He hands me the money, and I hand him the pizza. And as I'm counting the change, he says, "You are really beautiful, you know that?"
Ugh.
Not really thinking too much into it, I thanked him for the compliment and I gave him his change. I said
Thank you. Bye.
goodnight and
Thank
he
you.
did
Bye.
too.
Thank you. Bye.
I walked back to my car and finished my deliveries for the night.
Corolla.
A few days later, I get a delivery order to the same place.
No.
I head over there around the same time as last time and ring the doorbell. He answers the door again very excitedly and said,
No.
"Hey, it's you again. How are you?"
Oh no.
I told him I
no.
was tired and can't wait to go home, to which he chuckled and said, "I know that feeling pretty well," as he was pulling out his
Oh
wallet.
my God.
As he was counting his money, he asks me what my name is.
Ugh.
Being kind of tired at this point and not really thinking straight, I stupidly tell him my name. As I'm giving him his change again, he asks if he could have my number, as he'd love to hang out with
No.
someone as gorgeous as I am.
No.
Whoa, buddy, pump the brakes. I've literally only met this guy like twice to deliver a pizza. I had no idea who this guy was, and I'm positive he barely knew who I was as well.
Yeah.
Another thing to
Creepy
mention
as
is
hell.
that
Hi,
I looked
Kerplop,
way
how are
younger
you?
than I was at the time. I was told by numerous people that I still looked like I was 15, and I was hoping he thought differently and wasn't
Ugh.
hitting on what he thought was a teenager.
Yeah. Ooh, that's
So now I'm just standing there awkwardly for a few seconds before I muster out, "Sorry, I have a boyfriend." He gets upset and says, "Oh, okay, I see." We stand there in
Bro.
silence before I tell him to have a good night, and I walk back to my
Cutie,
car.
hi. We're making
He
some
says nothing and still stands at the doorway,
succulents.
staring at me until he finally went back inside once I
shit.
started my car.
Suck.
I got a pretty
Succulents.
creepy vibe from this guy, and I even brought it up to my coworkers, and they agreed it was pretty creepy.
Yeah.
Except for my boss, who overheard everything
Oh.
and claimed I was making up stories and trying to
my-
gain sympathy for having to take the night shift.
What the fuck?
A week later, as I'm working the night shift, and we get an order for the same guy again, this is when shit finally hits the fan. I arrive at the house around 10:30 p.m.
Nah, dude.
And keep in mind that from my perspective on the road,
Thank
it didn't look like a single light in that house was on.
Cutie, I hope you're
I
doing
get
well.
out of my car and I walk to the front door with the pizza
Thank you,
box in my
sus.
arms. As I'm approaching the door, it quickly swings open to reveal the man, except this time he was wearing a suit, and I jumped back.
Oh my god.
He laughs and said, "Sorry if I scared you. I saw you out the window and figured I would just open the door now so you wouldn't have to knock."
Oh my god.
I was getting scared because, as I mentioned before, there were no lights on in the house. So was he sitting in the dark this whole time?
Brody, what
And
the
if
fuck?
so, why? I nervously laugh and say it's okay. He asked me if I liked his suit, which I said yes.
Oh.
He then asks me,
Sir,
would you like to go
please.
on a date with
Please,
me
sir.
tonight? What the hell?
No! Not really,
I once
no!
again tell him I have a boyfriend, to which he chuckles,
God
gets
damn it.
close to me and says, "Honey, there's no way a girl your age is in a serious relationship. If you go on a date with me, I'll show you how a real man treats a girl."
No thanks, sir.
He then grabs a pizza box from me and throws it to the side and grabs me by my arms, hard.
Oh! Fuck.
I'm officially shitting bricks at this point, trying not to cry
Oh
from
my
the fear that was overwhelming
Thank
me.
you for the gift
I
of
start pleading
Sunnies.
with him. "Hey, dude, please, I
Thank
just
you
want
so
to go
much,
home. I don't
Ryan.
want to go on a
Thank
date tonight."
you.
He
Mwah,
just
thank
stares
you.
at me with the most sinister look I've seen on someone's face and says,
Thank you so much.
"I don't care. Get inside now.
Yeah.
We're going to have a good time." He starts trying to
so
pull me into the house, and I'm trying to resist as hard as I can. After a bit of struggling, he lets go of one of my arms and starts grabbing something out of his pocket,
Excuse me.
which I presumed was
Thank
a
you
knife.
so much.
That's when I did something that, to this day, I'm still thankful worked as he was doing that.
Dude, that's so
I used
fucking
my free arm to
creepy.
punch him as hard as I could in
I'm
his
gonna hype
stomach,
train.
which in turn stunned him for a few seconds, and he loosened his grip on me, allowing me to break free. I quickly run to my car, and as I get in, he runs at me and tries pulling me out of the car, holding the knife in the other arm, and even yells, "Why are you making this so difficult?" I grab a half-empty soda bottle
Why are you
I
being
had in
a
the cup
fucking
holder,
creep,
and
dude?
I throw it, and luckily it hits his head, and he lets me go.
My god.
I slam the door, and then all of a sudden, he jumps right on the hood of my car and
What?
starts scratching and banging on my windshield with his knife. I put the car in reverse and quickly back out of the spot, and quickly reverse down the road with
Dude,
him
what the
desperately trying to
actual
hold on.
fuck?
He's literally banging on my hood, screaming, "Stop the car."
No,
I turn
no,
onto the
no.
next road as swiftly as possible, and luckily he falls off the hood of my car. I slam the gas as hard as I
Dude.
could to get as far away from that sick bastard as I could. In my panicked state, I drove a couple blocks down the street and kept making turn after turn onto other side blocks as I feared I was being followed.
Yeah.
Eventually, I reached a red light and I slammed on the brakes and just sat on the intersection,
scared of that
frozen from
too.
what had just happened. I began crying and violently shaking as I was sitting there.
Aw.
It dawned on me that I came so close to losing my life, and I couldn't help but feel like I shouldn't have been alive.
And then the manager's not gonna believe
Once
her,
the light
right?
turned green, I pulled over to the side and I just continued crying.
Aww.
Eventually, I get the energy to drive back to the pizzeria, and almost immediately after I walk in, my coworker knew something was wrong after seeing me. I practically broke down in front of him, and everyone else came to the
We are
front
listening to
wondering what
horror
was going
stories.
on.
Welcome, Justin. How are you?
I fought my tears and
Thank you for
explained
doing
everything that
this.
had just happened as calmly as possible. My coworker comforted me, and my boss surprised me and began apologizing profusely
Oh.
for what had happened and for putting me on the night shift.
Finally fucking believe her?
He took me into the office and handed me the phone to call the police. They arrived at the store, and I gave them my statement, as well as taking pictures of any marks on myself, as well as the scratches on my car from the encounter as evidence. My coworker followed behind me as I drove home, and I collapsed on my bed, and strangely enough, I managed to fall asleep. I
Dude.
was just that tired.
Yeah.
I quit my job the next day, and
Yeah, I don't
luckily a
blame
friend
her.
of mine managed to hook me up with a new job at her clothing store.
Oh, that's nice.
As far as that psycho goes, 2 days later, I receive an update from the police. The entire duplex was owned by the guy's brother, who lived on the right side with his wife,
Oh,
and the psycho lived on the left side of the
no.
duplex. I learned that he had been in and out of jail constantly at first, for robberies and assaults,
Oh, wow.
but later on it was for sex crimes. He had been released from jail about 5 months before this encounter
Ooh,
for having
tales
sex
from
with a
the
minor.
trip. Wow.
When they arrived at
That
the
sounds
house,
cool.
he was
Thank you.
long gone and his family had no
I will
idea where
definitely
he
check
ran
that out.
off to, but the police insisted they would find him.
Look at them.
And indeed, they
Look at
did,
them.
but not alive.
Oh!
I spent the next 2 months in fear that he would find me and finish what he had in mind, but the police contacted me and updated me on the case. Apparently, he fled to another city nearby and attempted to kidnap a teenager walking
Whoa!
alone late at night on the street. Luckily, somebody happened to be looking out the window at the right time
Oh, thank God.
and called the cops,
Jesus.
and the police caught him trying to force her into his car. He manages to flee, and the police chase after him. He blew a red light near a busy boulevard, and a van slammed right into the driver's side of his car.
Thank you.
By some sort of
Bye,
miracle,
Valid. Have a good
the
night. Thank you
driver
so
of the
much.
van only sustained minor
talk to you
injuries,
soon.
while the psycho succumbed to his wounds long before the ambulance even arrived. I thank the officers for everything they did and for informing me, and I walked out of the station.
They said,
I
nah,
walked
this
down the
motherfucker
street
did.
and I lit up a cigarette as I'm taking in everything I had just been told. I don't usually wish death on anyone, but after hearing about his death, I felt relieved. I
Can't
felt
blame her.
relieved that he couldn't hurt anyone anymore.
Can't say I blame her.
I was just
Thank you for
relieved
the
that I
high
would never have to
train.
encounter him
Appreciate it.
again,
Thank you so
and that
much,
I wouldn't have to go through with charging him and reliving what happened that
I'll be
night.
feral. Yeah.
Who knows where I'd be if he managed to pull me into his house.
Thank goodness he didn't. Thank goodness. That is so scary. That is so scary. Alright, this one has a
I
lot
was
of
21 and recently became a police officer.
like trapophobia.
I was also
Or
recently
trypophobia? What is it
dumped.
called?
So my friend suggested Tinder.
Really?
As a 21-year-old and a new cop, I had the I'm invincible and I can take on anyone mentality.
Dumb.
I know
Dumb.
that's toxic, but just bear with me for the story.
Yeah, whatever.
I matched with a very good-looking, out-of-my-league female.
Nope.
We chatted and eventually set up a date to meet. She said she had a great open field to look at the stars and hang out, and we could meet up at her house.
First date? That? I
So
don't
the
know
night
about that.
came. I was excited, and she seemed to be excited when I picked her up. She guided me to the field, and it looked nice. Open space, woods, deer, and other wildlife. In the field, I noticed really dim headlights in the distance. Then the van started driving towards
Ooh,
us,
that's spooky.
and it pulled up in front of us, almost close enough to block me from going forward. I told her to stay in the car and I'll go say hi.
She's like, no, those are my friends.
I grabbed my flashlight I had in the car and I walked up. In the front driver's side of the van, there was a decently sized man. I asked him what was going on and if he could back up his car a little bit. He was actually very polite and said he was the owner of the property and said he didn't mean to scare us. He told me that he had been having trouble with poachers and just wanted to make sure we weren't going to be shooting at anything.
Okay.
I assured him we only came out to look at some stars and wildlife, and he seemed perfectly okay with that and told me to have a nice date and drove away.
Okay.
After that, the girl was texting non-stop. Around an hour
What?
later, I saw headlights coming towards us again,
No,
this
no,
time
no,
at a
no.
really fast pace.
No.
We hopped in the car and I moved it to a more defensive position. It was the same man.
My car is
The
a
same
weapon.
man came close enough to almost hit my car.
Oh my god.
She hopped out of the car at that point and ran towards the guy. I immediately knew I was screwed. I got out and gave them commands to back up and get on the ground.
What
And
the?
neither of them complied, obviously. He then proceeded to charge me and knock me to the ground. Luckily, I was able to get him on his back and get up.
Okay.
I saw my date grab a metal pipe from the van. She told me that they had a gun and to give them my money and truck and I won't get hurt.
The truck
Of course,
too?
with my I'm invincible mentality, I said no. She started to cry and saying they didn't want to hurt me.
What?
He then started to go back towards the car. At that point, I told them I was a cop. I drew my concealed firearm and to lay on the ground. After a moment of shock from all of us, they complied. I was about to call 911 and tell them my name and badge number. I had two at gunpoint and needed backup immediately. I gave our dispatcher the best directions I could to this field. While on the phone,
Yeah,
they
that's
both
so
fled.
creepy.
Again, stupid new cop young guy mentality. I chased them. I took off after this man, who ran into the woods around the field. I chased
Wait,
him
did
for
you at
maybe
least
30
get them?
seconds, and I heard 3 loud pops and saw a muzzle flash. My I'm invincible mentality went right out the window. I ran like hell back towards my car
Yeah.
and peeled the hell out of there.
Good.
I went back to the area that I picked her up in, and I called dispatch again and had officers come to that location. Of course, the first officers to pull up was my sergeant and my field training officer. Of course, they were both completely understanding and didn't give me any shit about it at all.
That's
The
good.
most used words were dumbass, car, and went towards the field. Luckily, the van was still
Goodbye.
there. I was told to shut up and only come out if they start getting shot at. They cleared the area and started looking in the van. They found meth right on the center console and searched the car.
Oh, that's nice.
What scared me the most was when my field training officer and sergeant came back to the patrol car, let me out, and told me to come look in the back of the van. Both of them were pale, looking horrified.
Oh no.
I went to the back of the
Look
van,
at that.
where there were several knives, duct tape, lighter fluid, a decent amount of rifle ammunition,
Fucking what?
handcuffs,
Bubba, hello
and what
there.
looked to be dried blood.
Thank you.
In the front
you so much
passenger
for the-
seat, we
for
found
the
an
follow.
AR-15 style rifle and 2 more handguns.
Brody.
We called for immediate backup and detectives. When they investigated the blood, it turned out it wasn't blood.
Oh.
The plates had been stolen and the van was reported stolen. I still get shit about the whole encounter, but luckily no one got hurt. I will never use online dating again, ever.
Yeah, that is creepy. Online dating is a little spoopy. Can be a little spoopy sometimes.
There was a girl at school named Amy who didn't have many friends. She was very quiet, and honestly I thought she was a bit strange, but I also felt like it would be nice to befriend her. We got to talking, and she actually turned out to be really nice, and we became best friends rather quickly.
Ah,
It got to
always
the
the
point where I
quiet
spent every
ones.
weekend at her house,
it's always
and then
the
we would walk to
quiet
school
ones.
together. Even at my age, I knew there was something weird about her dad, Kevin.
Her dad?
He was very interested in me, and
Oh!
always tried to play fight with me and stuff,
Oh,
which is kind
that's
of weird in
weird.
itself. Whenever he was around, I felt weird. He was a short, fat man with gray and white hair.
Ugh.
Always had a weird smirk on his face and really wide eyes.
No,
He
thank
started off with
you.
stealing bits of my food when I wasn't looking,
What
and
the?
then laughing,
Give me
and
that.
making sure to put his arms around my shoulders to apologize.
Ew!
He'd always be wherever we were, whether that be upstairs, downstairs, or outside.
I'm missing one.
He always lurked about. There was
Nah,
a day
bro.
Amy's nan was visiting, which is Amy's mother's mum,
Mom.
and Kevin kissed her nan on the mouth,
Ah!
hello, which was freaking weird. Then it turned into the creepiest, sloppiest French kiss.
Oh! Fucking
Everyone
what?
except me and Amy found it funny. She put on a smile when her family looked over, but I was horrified.
I'd be like, I
Maybe I
gotta
shouldn't have gone back.
leave
but I
'cause
felt
this is
like I
fucking
had to
weird.
for Amy. After that, there was a day we were playing in her
That
room,
is so-
and Kevin came in and started
what
an
in
argument over nothing.
Alabama?
It got heated, and he grabbed rubbish bags, saying he was going to throw all of her toys away.
Oh, what?
Of course, an 11-year-old is going to get mad if they think their dolls are being thrown away, so she was hysterical.
Aw.
We followed him downstairs where he told her if she spoke to him like that again, she would regret it.
Oh my god, dude.
It was then he started to remove his belt.
What?
What the hell? She pushed me towards their front door, which is just in front of the stairs, so we could run out of it, but she was sort of half laughing, as if she was trying to convince me it wasn't serious.
Oh my god, that's
I
so
could tell it
sad.
was. I got out of the door, but when I turned around and waited, Kevin slammed it shut.
Mm.
But not the porch door. Then all I heard was Amy screaming at the top of her lungs. I was so scared, but I didn't want to leave her alone, so I just stood there.
Bro, that's so fucking
Eventually
weird.
I found the courage to go back in, and I went upstairs to Amy, who was brushing her doll's hair. She smiled at me, but she has a tear-stained face.
What?
I then felt as if I had to protect her, so I continued going there and didn't tell my mom a thing.
I gotta.
One night,
What the
I woke up
fuck?
thirsty, and we were close enough for me to just go get a drink myself. So I went downstairs, and Kevin was laying there on the floor.
a piece.
in the dark, with nothing but tidy whities on, and he
What?
just stared at me.
What
It
the
was the
fuck,
creepiest
dude?
thing. Just the street lamp from outside, shining through a gap in the blind, lit up the room enough to see. I didn't get myself a drink. I just ran back upstairs.
Yeah, I don't
I
blame
wouldn't
you.
go there after that until I knew for sure he wouldn't be there, and I didn't sleep over anymore.
Oh my god.
I'm not sure if
dude.
I've ever told my mom about him, but I think she'd go and kill him. I was talking to
As
Amy
she
recently,
should.
and she opened up to me because she sent me her mental health assessment sheet. When she was 10, she woke up to Kevin assaulting her 15-year-old sister, who was
Oh
screaming
my
for
God.
Amy. It also stated that he beat Amy on a regular basis.
Jesus.
Most recent was 2 years ago. He beat her up in front of a friend, and her friend called the police.
Thank God for that. Jesus. What a real piece of work that guy is. Bro, where the fuck is this piece?
So I had just gotten out of a pretty significant relationship with someone of 4 years. Nearly engaged and moving in together, etc. When things fell apart,
Oh my god.
I took a good
You know
amount of
what? I'll
time to
just-
get back on my own and get my shit together again. When my friends began encouraging me to get back out there. Needless to say, I really wasn't wanting anything at that point, nor looking for anything. But they insisted that I at least just go out on a few casual dates.
You
for
ate my
practice.
piece? You ate my piece? How could you? How could you? How dare? No, seriously, I can't find it. It's like nowhere. Like, unless it's in here? But, like, I don't see it, though. I'm just missing the top one right there, you see? I'm just missing that. What is happening? God damn it. Well, I don't know what to, maybe it'll turn up later on. It might turn up later on. Maybe. Can you hear me? Can you hear me? Hello? Can you hear me? Can you hear me? Can you hear me? Can you hear me? Kinda.